Congruent figures. Congruent figures are figures that are the same size and the same shape. So we have triangle ABC, which is congruent to triangle DEF. One way that you would write that in shorthand is using the triangle shape, writing ABC, and that is congruent to triangle DEF. Now some of you guys might be wondering what this symbol is. If you take a look up here in the upper left-hand corner, I did add this in. So congruent symbol is an equal sign with what I would like to describe as a tilde on top. It's a shorthand of writing the word congruent. So coming back over here, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Corresponding angles are angles that have the same relative position in geometric figures. So in this case, you have angle A that matches angle D. I use the angle sign rather than using the word. Since this is using a lot of geometry, we are exploring the shorthands. And then we have angle B, which is congruent to angle E. Corresponding to angle E. And angle C corresponds to angle F. Corresponding sides are sides in the same position in geometric figures. So we have AB, which is the same as DE. It's very important that you guys write it in the correct order. If you start with A and you go to B, you have to start with D and go to E. Those mean that they're corresponding. I also have the mark with 1/. AC AC and then DF, or in this case CA and FD, those are the same thing. Just make sure you have them in whichever order, whether it be CA, FD, or AC, DF. And then lastly, we have BC, which corresponds to EF. So again, these little tally marks helps you figure out which one corresponds to which. So we're gonna start with example 1, naming corresponding parts. The figures are congruent, so name the corresponding angles and the corresponding sides. Well, we know that they are equal. Congruent means that they are equal to each other. So if I have angle A, that's going to correspond to angle W. So angle A and angle W. Then we have angle D. I'm going to put 2 lines to signify that, and angle Z. So angle D and angle Z. We have angle C. I'm going to put 3 lines here. Angle Y has 3 little lines. So angle C and angle Y. And last but not least, we're going to have angle B and angle X. So angle B and angle X. You don't want to leave that blank. You want to put in that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and match 1, 2, 3, 4 as well. So those are the corresponding angles. Now we're going to move on to the corresponding sides. So we have AB. That corresponds with WX. So AB corresponds to WX. One thing I didn't point up here, this means that that's a side length, so I need to add that in for my AB and my WX. If you just write down the letters without having the side symbol, then technically you're not meaning anything. So then we're going to go with BC and XY. So side length BC and side length XY. Then, guess what I forgot to do? I showed that as 1, that's not true. So BC should have 2 lines, XY should also have 2 lines. DC should have 3, ZY should also have 3. So we have DC, that line segment corresponds to ZY. And that leaves us with, I'm going to put 4 marks on my last side of each. So AD corresponds with ZY. Right. So I'm going to switch the boards. Feel free to go and pause, do that on your own, then come back and check. All right, on your own, The figures are congruent. Name the corresponding sides and angles. So just like before, I'm actually going to start with corresponding sides this time. Doesn't matter, you can start with whichever one you prefer. So we're going to start with QR. So the side length QR corresponds to KL. Then we have RS, which responds to JK. JN corresponds to ST. Then we have VT, which corresponds to NM. And lastly, we have LM, which goes with QV. Remember, on all of those, you want to make sure that you have the corresponding sides have that line out in front. So now we have corresponding angles. We're going to put angle L and angle Q. Angle M and angle V. Angle N and angle T. Angle J with angle S. And lastly, angle K and angle R. You are more than welcome to use colors if you prefer. That's what I prefer doing, especially for my corresponding sides. I took highlighter and I did it that way, but this is still an appropriate way. All right, for example 2, identifying, oh, I have to go back. My apologies. I did that same thing that I did before. I did not put my correct type of markings in here. If that happens to you, that's okay. Just go back and fix it. That's something that may happen to you on a test or a quiz. So again, it's good if you catch it sooner rather than later. All right, so example 2, identifying congruent figures. Which square is congruent to square A? Well, let's compare square A and square B. What do they each have? Each square has 4 right angles. So I'm showing the angles shorthand with the symbol. So 4 right angles. Each side length of square A is 8, and each side length of square B is 9. So, corresponding sides are not congruent. So you can show that with your equal sign and that tilde, and you can put a little slash through it to make it say not congruent to. All right, now we're going to compare square A and square C. And my apologies, got the E in square over there. So let's go with each square has 4 sides. I mean, not 4 sides, 4 right angles. Each side length of square A and C are 8. So this means that square A and C are congruent. So in parentheses, and practice having that equal sign with a little tilde at the top. Ooh, that one looks a little wonky. Sometimes, you'll practice and you go back and have to fix it. Not a big deal. Okay, well, we're gonna move on to example number 3. Using congruent figures. So trapezoids ABCD and JKLM are congruent. What is the side length? What is the length of side JM? Well, let's see. ABCD is congruent to JKLM. So I'm just going to fill in this information. AB is the same as JK, so that's going to be 8 feet. BC is the same as KL, which is 6 feet. CD and LM are the same, so we have 8 feet. AD and JM are corresponding, so that's 10 feet. So what is the side length of JM? Well, JM is going to be 10 feet. Well, that looks a little like a 16. So that's 10 feet. What is the perimeter of the trapezoid JKLM? Well, I've already labeled all of these. So perimeter is adding up the outside of the trapezoid. So here we have 8 plus 6 plus 8 plus 10. 8 plus 8 is 16 plus 10 is 26 plus 6 gives me a total of 32 feet. I'm going to add in that A, B, C, D is congruent to JKLM, those trapezoids, just to give me some extra information. And for letter D, I'm going to also do that same thing. So I know that the side length JM is 10 feet because the side length AD is congruent to the side length JM. All right. Letter F, which square in example 2 is congruent to square D? Square D has 9 as each the sides. So if we look at our previous problem up above for letter C, you'll see that square B has the same side measurement. So again, square B. All right, letter G. In example 3, which angle of JKLM corresponds to angle C? Well, JKLM, which one corresponds to angle C? Well, I know that A and J, B, K, C, L, D, and M. So with that information, what corresponds to angle C? That's going to be angle L. I like to make a fancier L so in that way it doesn't look like angle L. Those look somewhat similar, or you could do angle L like that. Just be careful. You're more than welcome to write it this way. Just make sure I can tell the difference. All right, in example 3, what is the length of side side KJ? So KJ is going to be 8 feet, and that's because I know that AB is congruent to side length KJ. Ooh, I wrote that wrong. Side length BA. You want to make sure you put them in the right order. Side length BA is congruent to KJ, which is 8 feet. Excellent job. Want you guys to go ahead, work on that homework.